Hey everyone, this is Ruben Zarate from Dante Elephante. Thanks for watching the Dante Elephante podcast. Today's a big episode. We're talking to my buddy Spencer Tweedy. He has a brand new book out, and he's just going around talking to musicians about how they like to record at home. It's pretty rad. It's pretty sweet. I'm glad I got to talk to him. I turned off all the fucking fans in here and it's fucking hot and it's killing me. So let's just make this really quick. If you don't know, the Dante Elephante podcast does not have any sponsors. We are people powered by the people, for the people. Thank you guys so much for getting on the Patreon. Put the Patreon right here. Please support the Patreon. If you don't know, we have Dante Elephante shirts. The shirts are on sale right now. We are running low. Go to Hello Merch. Here's the link. It should be right here. I don't know. I'll do that in post. Don't worry. But I want to give a big shout out to these people. Andrew Eroth, Joseph Hallow, and Ashley Brinkley. You guys are supporting the podcast, and that is beautiful. It's really nice. Yeah, I go over the Patreon. I do DJ mixes. I'm doing Dante Elephante breakdowns where I break down not famous. I shouldn't say that. I already fucked up. I'm gonna have to start all over again. I break down popular Dante Elephante songs I think people want to hear more about that I never really. It's my podcast, but I don't really want to talk about myself. So I do that on the Patreon. And the first month was Call Me on the Phone, and then I did Never Trust a Junkie. I don't know what September is going to be yet, but hopefully I find out soon. Yeah, thank you to those three people. If you want to check out how to support Dante Elephante, go to the Patreon. Check out Hello Merch for the Dante Elephante shirt. I'm wearing it in this episode. That was not planned. I just didn't have a shirt to wear when we started filming. So, yeah, I'll make this short and sweet, and thank you so much for supporting. Okay, Spencer Tweedy, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, man. We have breaking news right now. I don't know, do you want to hear the breaking news?
Yeah, sure.
I'm not sure if you even want to talk about this, but John Lennon's killer denied parole for the 11th time.
Did you say denied parole?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. For the 11th time.
Wow.
You love to see it. That guy deserves to be in jail, I think. I don't know. I'm a huge John Lennon fan, so like every time I see this, every 2 years it pops up. I'm like, okay, good. Keep him in there.
No. Yeah, no, totally. My God. I'm a huge fan also. I feel like there's a lot. I think of, oh my God. Well, I don't know if you were inviting a philosophical discussion about it.
Go ahead.
I think of I'm curious what Yoko and Sean and Julian's perspective on it is, because I know that when Pope John Paul II or something, I'm not totally versed on my Pope names, was attempted when there was an assassination attempt on him, he ended up becoming friends with the person who tried to assassinate him in prison, and it was like this extremely profound thing, and that complicates the way I feel about Lennon, and which is why I'm curious about how Yoko and Sean and Julian and all of their other loved ones think. But in any case, that's crazy. And also, of course, I share your anger that he stole John from us.
Have you ever dug into those last recordings John Lennon had? I guess it would be Milk and Honey and some of those other demos they did.
It's funny because my brother Sammy and I have been really listening to the anthology Beatles songs a lot lately, Free as a Bird and Real Love.
Yeah.
I don't know the Milk and Honey stuff, but I've also been getting into his 1975 records and
Walls and Bridges.
Yeah,
dude,
yeah.
That record's sick. It's such a different and weird record because it has horn, saxophone, and bongos, and I was like, oh, this is tight. And it has a weird lineup because Rock and Roll was supposed to come out before after it or something. I don't know. It gets all complicated with the legalities.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's all so good though.
So how have you been, man? How's the quarantine been for you and your family?
very, excuse me, very comfortable. Feel super lucky.
Yeah.
It's just been a lot of time at home and time recording, so I'm ashamed to even like talk about it. We've just been really fortunate. How about you?
Totally. Same. Yeah, I've been living with my dad and just kind of
Mm,
hanging, doing a lot of podcasts, video editing. Like my whole family's healthy, so that's all you can ask for at this point, you know?
definitely.
Yeah.
That's
That's
great.
awesome. Yeah, so how long so you're releasing a book?
Yeah, in October.
That's
It's
awesome.
yeah, it's a book about people who self-record, people who make records at home and just make records outside of the traditional ways that most people think of when they think of recording.
And what made you want to do a book? Write a book.
Um, I came up with the idea a few years ago, because I've always been a self-recorder. Or at least since high school, I've loved figuring out how to record things at home, and also that process of building up an entire song by yourself where you're playing all the instruments. I idolized people like McCartney and Kevin Parker
Mm-hmm.
and people who are sort of the like titans of recording music that way. And so I've always just been deeply into that, and I realized, and I also love Tape Op Recording Magazine. There's just like you learn so much from the interviews in Tape Op, but it occurred to me that there wasn't something that was totally dedicated to the the sort of smaller niche of people who record by themselves or just record at home with close collaborators and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I started thinking about whether there would be a way to share some of those stories, and it took a while to settle on its shape. But Lawrence Azerrad, graphic designer and author in his own right, and I sort of developed the idea of making it into a photo book with Daniel Topete, and that's what we ended up doing.
Oh, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
I guess would you say what's like gonna be the layout? Like it's gonna be like each chapter is on a certain musician, and then you see studio pictures of their studio, or what's it gonna be like? What's it gonna look like?
Not really. It's more divided up like thematically,
Oh.
around different uh, aspects of self-recording. So there's a chapter about collaboration, and there's a chapter about um, like people who've had negative experiences in traditional recording environments and how that has motivated them to do things on their own. And it sort of weaves all the artist stories together uh, in like a more cohesive way rather than a sequence of different magazine style profiles. But that said, at the end of the book, there are excerpts from all of the 27 artists' interviews. So that's kind of like where they each get their own dedicated portion.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that traditional going to a studio, paying hourly, like maybe $1,000 a day or $50 an hour, like
Hmm.
that's what turned me away from. Okay, I need to get away from this because my recordings never came out better, and in fact, they came out worse because I didn't have time to figure out, okay, like the overdubs and all that stuff. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's sort of like that's one of the most common things that I heard from people I talked to for the book. Just the you can, and I've similarly to you, I felt like it's just a lot easier to explore and feel totally unhampered exploring, um, when you're not worrying about using up someone else's time. But that said, like the book isn't anti-traditional studio, and there's
Totally,
still like
yeah.
tons of. It's just a matter of finding the people and the environment that works for you.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Yeah. Damn, that's crazy. One of the people I'm going to get the book and I'm interested to see how they work is Bradford Cox. That's a
Oh
guy
yeah.
I've always like wondered like what's, because his music's so tight. Is he gridded? Is it loosely to
Yeah.
a click? Like these are the things I'm wondering about. Do we get a great insight on Bradford Cox? And
Well, actually, I'm sorry to say that his stuff is not as worked into the main body of the book
okay.
as it is for some other artists because he was one of the last interviews I
Mm.
did. Um, but if you want to dedicate a little bit of time to it right now, I could tell you what I learned about that from talking to
Dude,
him.
we got all the time you have, I guess. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, basically, like, I mean, I think, well, he's made records in traditional studios with, I can't remember the producer's name, but somebody I think based in Atlanta where he lives. Um, and and then and I'm not sure whether those are gridded like you said or
Mm-hmm.
not, but I think what's most interesting is the stuff that he makes on his own at home, like for Atlas Sound
Mm-hmm.
or possibly for some Deer Hunter releases. He is a super super passionate advocate of this digital portable recorder called the Tascam DP008
Mm.
or 0008. And so we've spent a lot of time talking about that and how it's got this just this sound. You don't think of a digital piece of gear as having like a signature because it's just it's digital, but it does have a specific way of processing stuff in whatever integrated chip it has inside of it, that he has found to be super cool. And also I think he loves the workflow of kind of having being limited by that portable device with it doesn't have a full on DAW screen or anything like that. So he
Totally.
kind of treats it like a 4-track tape recorder. And he said that he builds things up track by track and is super unprecious about it. And if he makes a mistake or starts not liking where it's going, he'll just erase it. And he claims that he has like thousands of songs that he's built that way.
Mm.
Oh, not claims. I mean, I'm sure I believe him. But yeah, he's definitely got a very interesting way of working and a lot of perspective.
Does he have like a rehearsal space, or is he doing it at home?
Uh, I think that stuff is at home. I think he records that
Cool.
stuff in his attic. Yeah.
Yeah, like was that kind of shocking how many of these musicians are straight up doing it in the literal bedroom
Mm.
pop?
Well, it wasn't shocking because that's why I picked them to
Okay,
talk to
cool.
them.
Yeah. That,
But yeah, it's wide ranging. There's a lot of people work this way. It might even be, I mean, it gets more and more common all the time because I think for people our age, it's sort of maybe more normal than thinking of getting into a studio because we've all, I guess by now we have all seen, you know, Steve Lacy working on his
yep,
iPhone on like something or, it's, and just laptops are everywhere.
totally. I've been doing all my demos on my iPad. And
Oh, cool.
I got this Alesis IO Dock 2, and I just slide the iPad in, and it has like two outs, and yeah, make it work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you been doing full instrumentation that way?
No, I have a Rhodes, and I have like my guitars, and then I do like the fake drummer on there. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sorry you had a bad experience when like recording in traditional studios. That sucks.
It's all right. Like I think I've gotten used to just like because my first record I did it with Jonathan Rado,
Yeah,
and that was like in
that's how
his
I know you.
parents. Yeah, that was like in his parents' house,
Mm,
in his childhood bedroom, and I was like, oh, we could just make records like this now.
yeah.
We should just keep doing this. So in many ways, I owe a lot of like the way I approach recording to Rado. Yeah, I almost called him John. Which, yeah, John Rado. Yeah, no, that was definitely my first experience, and I haven't looked back since.
That's awesome.
And that was like on a 1/4 inch tape. Like I think that's why that record sounds so so lo-fi and so dirty. And I was like maybe his second record, and that he had produced. And yeah, it's awesome. I love that record, but
Yeah.
it's definitely a unique sound. If I
Yeah,
look back on it, yeah.
totally.
Um, let's see. I asked some people some questions on the internet. Let's see. Uh, did you learn a lot about? Did people really talk a lot about like compression settings, EQ? Did people get really nerdy about that, or is it more just about like the feeling of recording at home?
Definitely more the latter, more about the feeling and the motivations and like I I would describe it as like the emotional life of making records at home or
Cool.
making records on your own. Um, and I mean, that was sort of by design because um, for one reason being that like when we went to a publisher and tried to get them to support the book, they were really concerned about it being overly technical and about it
Mm.
being for too small of an audience, which is I think is totally understandable. And then the second reason being I was totally I agreed with them because for me, like uh, I think that it can be super distracting to I I mean I love thinking about the compressor settings and learning about all those things and learning about specific techniques from other
Yeah.
people. But it's I don't know if I could trust myself to like not accidentally let that become the focus and not let that overtake the things that I think are more important, which are um, discovering those things on your own and also applying them in your own particular context. Because a compressor setting only does what you want it to do if you're putting in something like that works for it. And
True.
um, we just tried to take like look further up the signal chain than that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hesitating because I don't want to shit on people who are interested in that stuff. Um, I mean, I think that makes sense though. Yeah.
I think I think a big part of recording is a lot of it is the feeling. Because
Yeah.
when we did our second record, we did ourselves, and because we just wanted to give it a shot, and we were just kind of like, how come this guitar sounds so thin? Oh, let's move it
Mm,
here. Let's do this. It's like all a feeling because we literally had no experience on mic placement and how to do drums and all these things. And I think a lot of it
totally.
is trial and error.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't. It's great to learn from other people. You can't discover everything on your own, or it's great to get someplace a little bit quicker by learning from others. But I think that uh, there's just a really common pitfall of thinking that that's the missing piece,
Mm-hmm.
that the knob being in the right spot, or even or like coveting a particular piece of gear, and as if that's the missing piece is like really harmful. And I just try to generally remember that the signal chain is like a hierarchy going from like the most important being the human being, and then the instrument, and then the microphone, and then all the processing, and then the medium last or something.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes even when you're trying to dial in the tone, if you take a photo of it, sometimes I don't know, maybe it's just in my own head,
Hmm.
but it doesn't sound the same always. It's like there's
No,
something
no,
about that moment.
totally. I mean, it's physical. The atoms
Yeah.
are changing. It's
Yeah.
the everything is changing from moment to moment. That's why, you even like two takes can be so wildly different with all the same stuff.
Totally. Oh, that's wild, man. Yeah, I was looking up
Yeah.
some videos online of you, and I saw some great videos of you at Chicago Music Exchange. Always
Mm,
have to stop by the Chicago Music Exchange when we're in town. And
yeah.
I saw a video of you playing drums. How long have you been playing drums?
Since I was a little kid, my mom owned a bar when I was growing up, and they had a drum set in the basement, and that
Cool.
was like the first time that I think they like plopped me down, excuse me, on that drum set when I was really little, and then I started playing at home after that.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
was it just for fun, or did you know? Oh, I think I want to be in a band. It's
I wanted to be in a band
Yeah.
immediately,
Yeah.
and I didn't. I didn't really discriminate based on instrument. Like I just wanted to be in a band. I was watching Wilco VHS tapes like on loop every single
Yeah.
day, nonstop, and yeah, it was absolutely what I wanted to do.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
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 I went to City College and I was taking some music classes, and I
mm.
was like, none of this has to do with touring, and like
Hmm.
that's what I want to do. And so
Yeah,
it didn't work out, but like, yeah, looking back, I
yeah,
was like, that's all I wanted to do was tour and tour and tour. And then once I started
hmm,
touring, I was like, oh, okay, maybe maybe like
hmm,
one or two a year. Like, let's take it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your experience with touring? Do you like touring, or would you rather be in the studio?
Well, I guess if I were being forced to compare them, I think the studio is kind of more important to me. I
Mm.
just really love the um the medium of making records, and I also love media where or like creative processes where you can just be have like have utter control.
Yeah.
It's just really soothing. And I don't mean
Totally.
that like in an anti collaboration way, but just in
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
way of like it's like the best. Um, it's super therapeutic I think because it's like the order. You can make it. You can bring order to it in whatever way you want, and just like realize stuff that you're hearing in your head. So that's super satisfying. But I do love touring and um like especially, I mean, no one is doing it right now, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all distance makes that is making our hearts grow fonder.
I know.
But
That's very true.
yeah, I mean, they're totally different sets of emotions, I think, and like I think you like there's super intense emotion that you can only experience from playing live and playing live with people you love, and then totally different sets, and then it's like a different experience too.
Hmm.
Feel like, oh my god, I just made this sound the way I wanted it to sound.
Yeah.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
And
It's that first,
yeah,
like, when you first hop in the car and you're listening to the mix,
hmm,
and then you go for that drive and you're like, holy shit,
hmm,
this is good. Sounds good.
yeah, and then you
Yeah.
literally can't hear it too many times. It's like you
That's
can play
also a
over and
problem.
over again.
That also kind of goes into like the mixing. I hate the mixing process. I don't know. How do
Hmm.
you feel about the mixing process? Is there a part of the process that you like more than others or dislike?
um I It's hard to say because when I'm working alone, my I kind of mix as I go. So
Mm-hmm.
I've never had like a just like a tracking phase and a mixing phase. It's always been mixing the track at the same time as tracking. So by the end of it, it's already where I want it to be because everything has been being adjusted in response to what came in. Um, but that said, I think my least favorite part is early tracking where you don't have the sounds that you want, and it's really uninspiring because
Yeah.
and and it's very anxiety inducing because you're thinking, am I going to be able to make this sound the way I want it to sound? And like sometimes you don't know because like I was saying earlier, it really ought to be coming from the instruments themselves and from the players themselves, and you can't take it for granted that you're going to be able to massage it into place later with
Mm-hmm.
EQing and compressing and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that's like my least favorite phase when like that uncertainty.
Yeah, where it's just like drums and bass and nothing's really
Hmm.
you haven't really touched anything. It's just like the dry tones and you're like, is this
Yeah,
where are we going here?
and that's one of the funnest parts about self recording because you can, if you want to, you can like you can uh, you can start with making sure you get it to exactly how you want it to sound
Mm-hmm.
in the first place, which is slightly different from starting with sounds, I think, because some people
Hmm.
like compose starting with sounds. They'll explore and come up with something like with a guitar pedal that inspires them, and that can be super fruitful. But I think I don't know, it's just a tangent. Like I think it's slightly different because to me, my ideal, most fun session is not starting with a sound, but rather starting with a song that I find like interesting and fun on its own, and then maybe like ruminating on it long enough to figure out what would be a cool approach to it, and then taking all the time required to like get that sound going, and then like let it go from there.
And then with like writing as you're recording too, have you ever tried experimenting with that? Because for me, I've always like written the song, we
Mm-hmm.
jammed the song, maybe we even played it
Mm-hmm.
live. Hopefully, we played it live because that adds like the final change to the track, and then you go into the
Mm-hmm.
studio. But have you ever just gone straight into the studio without anything?
Not really. Like I've tried,
Yeah.
I'll sometimes I'll track like guitar ideas that are unfinished with the idea of just like trying them or adding another part to them later. And
Mm-hmm.
I very rarely ever have lyrics when I start recording a song because um to me all that matters is that like the progression is there, and have a melody which I'll just like mumble or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but not a lot of experience writing directly into the thing.
Yeah.
By that point, I kind of just want to be like executing. I kind of get a
Totally.
little impatient maybe about it.
Yeah, I've definitely have worked with people who do it that way, and I'm just like,
Mm,
I feel like we're taking more time here, like than this has to be if we just written it beforehand and then gone into the
yeah.
studio. Yeah, that's crazy. What did you notice when interviewing, like a commonality between all the people you interviewed for this book? Like, was
Hmm.
there like something like, oh, everyone kind of does this. This isn't because this isn't just what you like writer's block or something like that. Like that people
Hmm.
think, oh, this is unique and happening to me. Was there a common thread, like a commonality between all the artists?
Yeah, I think the common thread was the one I mentioned a little bit ago about um, just feeling more comfortable experimenting on their own time
Yeah.
rather than other people's. And that's kind of interesting to me because like the majority of my recording experiences with my dad and at the loft, and I guess it's the loft is sort of a hybrid between self-recording and a traditional studio because there is an engineer, Tom Schick, who my dad collaborates with a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and it's certainly like more built up than the average bedroom or something like that. um but what I'm getting at is like I think my dad is really, really good at trusting that it's okay to explore lots of stuff. And that everybody, like if your relationships are good, and if you're managing like the sessions well, then uh everybody will be on board with uh the things that I think some of the artists in the book, and myself included, have thought you can only do when you're by yourself. So I say that 'cause it gives me hope because like I think that
Yeah.
there are great things to be had from working in a more traditional environment too, and for some people it might just be a matter of like building up enough confidence to do that exploration with other people's time involved, or finding the collaborators that you can trust enough um to not get sheepish that you're wasting time.
Totally. Yeah. Has that been the main place you recorded? Is the loft? Or
Not for me. For my personal stuff, that's like in my bedroom at home.
oh, cool.
Or when I was in college, there was a arts uh, like foundation in town that owned a church building,
Oh, cool.
and I had a studio in the basement in that building for 3 years, which was
Oh,
really
nice.
crazy. It was
Oh,
really
that's
cool.
awesome. What was it? Did it sound great? What was so crazy about your experience at the church?
It was just an amazing building. It was built by like Franciscan monks, I think, in the 1930s, with all this wrought iron that they cast themselves, and it's on the bank of a river, so it's a really beautiful area. And I just meant it was nuts to have that privilege, because it was like, I wouldn't have been able to record up there if I had only had my dorm room or stuff like that.
True, yeah. Yeah, that's like a big problem in Santa Barbara, is having, like, we don't have basements in Santa Barbara. There isn't, like, Portland's known for having basements and everyone can jam in their own house. But yeah, there's like practically nowhere to practice or really record in Santa Barbara. Yeah, it's rough. That's why I always just go to LA, because I have friends who have more space in LA. It just makes more sense.
Wow, that's really, no basements is a really foreign idea to me. That's,
we're below sea level. Like, it doesn't really, in California, you know how it can be. Dang, so who else is in this book?
There's a bunch of people. It's
I think I saw Mac Demarco
and Mac Demarco's in it, and Ty Segall and Eleanor Friedberger from the Fiery Furnaces, and oh my god, and Vagabond.
Did you Did you fly to their houses for the interview? Was it through Zoom or?
Yeah, Daniel, the photographer, and I were kind of like driving and flying all around the country in 2019 and collecting all of these sessions. And then a handful of people I did over the phone when it wasn't like feasible for us to travel.
That's awesome. Yeah. Have you been seeing these Mac Demarco videos on YouTube? Like the Eternal Family, where he's giving studio tips and he has like this like jelly all over his face.
No. Oh my god.
It's nuts. And his voice is all pitched down and he's just talking about, it's literally recording tips and what he does. Wow. But it's so bizarre. And I don't know if it's his YouTube channel or if it's like someone he just like collaborates with, but yeah, they've been posting pretty frequently. Yeah.
Oh my god. No, I haven't seen those. I've seen the actually, I think he's sort of secretive about it, but he let's say somebody live streams from their studio. Do you know about those?
No, I haven't seen those.
Oh, well, Mac has a secret YouTube channel where he live streams himself recording.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it's a very easy secret to figure out, so I don't think I'm blowing it, but I would love to see those. You said Eternal Life?
I think it's called Eternal Family.
Eternal Family.
And there's also a lot of like stock footage. I don't know if he's going, that's why I'm thinking it's not entirely him, because there's just random stock footage, and I don't know how much Mac loves filmography. Maybe he's out there filming random stock footage for this YouTube channel. But yeah, there's a lot of like, I can't remember what the series is called, but it's just his like, advanced recording techniques with Mac DeMarco. Cool. It's just
that's funny. That sounds kind of, I wonder if it's inspired by Fred Armisen's drumming videos.
Oh, I haven't seen those.
About those?
I watched his special.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a series of videos, I think he did in like the 90s, called like Advanced Drumming Technique or something.
That's awesome.
Where he's just like mocking all of the masterclass videos and stuff. But yeah, that's the sense I got about Mac, that he's unexpectedly techie. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting, because there's like a lot of stigma that surrounds being too much of a nerd, especially in rock music. It's like
totally,
and
there's like a stigma, not a stigma, but like a vibe around him that he doesn't care. You know, he's a slacker rock, jangle, slacker kind of. You know, it's mainly because he just likes to be comfortable, from what I can tell, based on his clothing. He's a Taurus. I'm a Taurus. I get it. I like to be comfortable too. So when I see him dressed the way he dresses, I'm like, that's tight. It looks comfy. And I think people get the idea that he doesn't care. He's aloof, but I think he's a very serious songwriter and producer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the vibe you got from him?
Totally. I think so. I just love, not to like ruthlessly bring it back to the book, but I'm just really into this idea of like people learning technical skills and like doing super nerdy things as a normal like part of life. Like there's this article by a person named Robin Sloan, I think is their name, about learning to make apps and how they realized that they could treat it like making a home cooked meal. So you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to, go to be a culinary just master to do that. You can just be like, I'm making something for myself or for my family or whatever. And it's like nutritious enough and delicious enough for us, and maybe not the most efficient thing or technically correct. And I love that idea for recording too, and just like and techie things like you were mentioning, filming yourself, making videos, or like things like that, because it's just fun. And I think it's particularly, programming is a big one because it's relatively new, and it's also super like intimidating for people. It can have a big learning curve, but so can learning how to use a DAW, a digital, audio program. And there's just a lot to gain, I think, from people not being learning or overcoming that intimidation, and I just personally like that mental shift that Robin Sloan talked about, of like thinking of it as a home cooked meal instead of that you have to become like a world famous chef or something. I think is super liberating. And that's why I read that article after I wrote the book, and we made the book, but I think it really summarizes like what we want the takeaway to be.
Yeah, it can be so intimidating just like staring at like at a DAW, a recipe. I started doing video editing, so a Premiere, I had no idea. I was just looking, I was like, oh my God. The one that I couldn't do was Pro Tools. I couldn't learn it.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on this all? What do you think is the best DAW? Does it matter? What's your thoughts on DAWs?
Oh, I think people should use whatever is like comfortable for them, even if it's GarageBand or Audacity or whatever. Totally. But for me personally, the jury is still out. I've used Pro Tools most of my recording time because, when I was starting to learn how to engineer, that's what everybody said to do. But lately I've been flirting with Apple Logic, the idea of buying Apple Logic. I used it a little bit in college and it was fun. But
that's sorry to cut you off, but that's kind of what I'm looking for in a DAW is fun. I want to have fun while we're recording. And my experience with Pro Tools is like, this is not musician friendly. This is like, for me, and this is my opinion only, that it's a DAW that requires musicians to get confused, so they hire somebody else. It's like, you need the engineer now because he knows how to do it. And I think that's why it's the industry standard. It probably still is. But I don't know if that was conscious. I think it was conscious. Let's make this really confusing, so your average Joe can't pick it up and learn it.
Yeah, I don't know if they were conspiring to let
That's my conspiracy.
Yeah, I admit I'm doubtful of that, but I do think that I do think it has the cruft of having been developed in the 90s and,
True.
and been slowly evolving um, over time. I totally agree. It's not fluid at all. And on top of all that, their billing practices, the way they charge for it, especially for like independent creators, is
Yeah,
really obnoxious. I know it's expensive. It's expensive to make professional software, but like
totally.
they're yeah, it's gross. But yeah, I agree, and that's why I'm thinking about using Logic, because it I think the more fluid it can feel, and the more, and even visually, like if the more just welcoming and like friendly the design can be, the
Yeah,
the better your music will be. You're like, you're having more fun.
way more fun. And then if
Yeah.
someone's, you're young and you, like you said, you start on your cell phone or an iPad, it's kind of
Hmm.
like, GarageBand. So it's just the easier jump.
Yeah.
So when you're ready to get more serious, I guess in quotes, like
Yeah.
there's Logic for you, and it's fun still.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think at the end of the day, a thing that I have to constantly remind myself with like creating more content for YouTube and being in this band is that it's supposed to be fun, and you get like
Yeah.
lost in that. And I don't know what age
Yeah.
that happens or what experience you go through, but it gets less fun. And now I'm in my I'm 30. I just turned 30,
Mm.
so I need to get
Happy
back to
birthday.
just. Oh, thanks, man. I want to get back to just fun.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about that during quarantine. Probably like a lot of people are like sort of thinking about their values and stuff with all this time home. If you're lucky to have time home. And about how like thinking too much about outcomes is like, and goals is like, uh can be a distraction from, or I've when I'm overly focused on those things, I forget to fully make it about the process, like you were saying, or I think like
Hmm.
you were saying.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that a lot in terms of like consuming art too, because when I've just had problems with like ideas of productivity and like wanting to be super efficient, and there's so much stuff I want to listen to or read or whatever, and so when you're trying to manage your time, it can be like, oh, I'm gonna make sure I listen to one album a day and start like making things regimented. That's just one example.
Hmm.
And and over this quarantine, I it's been pleasant. I've pleasantly remembered that that like none of that matters, and I should just just like read something that feels interesting in the moment. Just like follow whims,
Yeah.
let it be. Follow your curiosity. That's the only way for it to be fun. That's the only
Totally.
way. And then when it's actually fun, then you don't have to force yourself to do it anymore, because it's not coming from your to-do list or your like
Yeah.
idea of education or something. Anyway, that's my soapbox about it.
Where it starts feeling like homework. Like, because I did the same thing.
Hmm.
I was like, I'm going to listen to every Al Green record. Why? Because I
Right.
haven't. And so then I
Right.
just started listening to every record, but then I found myself less interested because, like, okay, that one's over. Let's go on to the next one. And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
When
and
I really should. Yeah.
you're antsy to move on.
It's like, let's hear the next one. It's like you're on Spotify, you're just listening to it and listening and listening. I don't know. But that's why I've always loved vinyl. You get that time with the record, you sit down with it. You're not I typically don't
Mhm.
really do anything else if I'm listening to a record. Um yeah, I don't know. That's why that's my soapbox about vinyl versus
Yeah.
digital.
Yeah, no, totally. That I think is one of the most compelling points in the age-old vinyl debate.
Yeah.
Just the about the ritual surrounding it, and um, being able to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, you listen to the first 5 songs and you're like, "Oh, that was side A." All
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Focus, settle down. Flip it over.
totally. Yeah. A side note about that is I really wish that digital records displayed the side A, side B
Oh yeah.
divide. I mean, it's just ugh, because I, like we make records that still have a difference between side A and side B, and that
Oh
is
yeah.
lost when you're doing it. And it just needs to be a little line. It could just be a little line. And it could be optional. You know, there's all sorts of encoding that happens in these files. It could be optional, and I think it would help because that's like crucial to the pace of an album sometimes, is that taking that moment to reset your mind a little bit.
Yeah. And I think some people, especially when you're trying to pitch a record to a label, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
why is the record like slow down in the middle? I was like, yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
it slows down on the record and then it picks you back up on track 6. Like,
Yeah.
but it doesn't seem like that. It just seems like the songs are getting slower and then it gets faster again, then slower.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
the feeling of a record is thrown off when, I don't know. But I still do my track listing as if it's going to be on vinyl, like on a record
Yeah.
with 2 sides.
Yeah. Totally.
A great example, Abbey Road with "I Want
Mm-hmm.
You, She's So Heavy." How it just cuts
Mm-hmm.
off. That's where the record ends.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
there's still some art like that is missing now, but I still
Yeah.
think that way.
Yeah. Have you pressed your do you press your own records, or have you
I
had any
haven't.
experience with that?
I did with my first record, but that was through a label in Los Angeles, and I am doing a new record that's going to come out, I guess, next year on a label in Philly, and we're doing all the labels, all the vinyl stuff right now. The nice thing about now is that I during the quarantine, I've taught myself Photoshop. Oh, cool. Just send me the files, and I've just been doing it on the templates myself, and if there's adjustments,
Nice.
we work back and forth, which is not a skill I had before. That's a brand new skill.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I think if a musician in the modern age, in the 2020, as we head to this next decade, I think it's important to know Premiere and to know Photoshop. Shoot your own videos, make your own designs. That way, you're not waiting on people. I think the waiting on people is so tough when you're starting out, which is something I should have done.
Yeah.
I should have done it when I was 20. I should have done this, man.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, it can be super artistically satisfying to work on those things too. I love working on the visual art surrounding an album, or like all of the other materials it involves. That stuff is creative too.
How much you've released 2 EPs, right? 2 or 3 I saw on Spotify. How much did you make those yourself, or how much input did you have when making those?
Yeah. I totally made all that art
Cool.
myself. The first one, Geezer Love, is an image I took in a museum somewhere. I have no idea who those two people are. And and then the second one is a photo my brother took, and I sort of directed him shooting that, and then did all the typography and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did you press those physically, or is it just a digital thing?
No, I never have. I kind of wanted to build up some more releases before I do anything physical, and maybe possibly combine them one day into some sort of 10-inch thing, or a series,
Cool.
or like several 7 inches or something.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how much? What was the experience like working on Tweedy, the project with your father?
Great. I mean, we still, work that way all pretty frequently. When he's not working on Moco stuff or producing someone else. It was really fun. It's just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous privilege to get to watch my dad work and learn how he produces, and also how Tom Schick works, the engineer that we work with. And I've just learned so much from getting to do that.
What was the dynamic? Would he just come in and be like, I got a song, let's jam? Or is it did he write them on his own and then came in with 10 songs, or?
Yeah, it varies a little bit, but generally the way it goes is like he's constantly stockpiling song ideas on voice
Yeah.
memos app like everybody, and will like periodically go through that pile and pick out the ones together with Tom and with Mark
Cool.
Greenberg, the studio manager, and just sort of like review them and judge them a little bit and put them into like an A folder and a B folder or something.
Cool.
And then like, when it's time for a session, start tracking those, and when one song is done, like going back to the pile and picking up another one. But they're kind of like vetted beforehand, so things pretty much only get tracked that we feel confident can turn into a song.
How much time do you have with the songs to like get your drum part ready?
Usually very little. Usually we'll like listen to the voice memo and then like try something immediately before we even really fully know the form yet.
Crazy. Is that tough for you, or do you like that, or what's your preferred?
Oh, I freaking love it because it's so much more fun to explore, like really. I don't know if it would be possible if the music were any more intricate, like if we had a million different parts and lots of tempo changes and stuff. But I love the freedom of it. It feels extremely free that we can just like pick the chord progression and then go try it. And sometimes, cool. Sometimes it takes, some more contemplating. Like sometimes we go back and listen, and my dad had something slightly different in mind, but in general, partly because we've just played together so long, and since I was so young, it usually works pretty well for us to approach it improvisationally.
It's that, and just from the sound of it, it sounds like it's like a pretty small kit. What is it? 4-piece, 3-piece? What are we looking at here?
I generally do play small kits. Usually like floor tom, rack, sometimes not a rack tom, sometimes a rack tom, just one, and kick, snare, and hi-hat, and then either one cymbal or 0 cymbals. We have a very strict cymbal philosophy.
I think that's what makes me think it, because you rarely hear a ride. Like, very rare.
Yeah, we're super selective about that, because it can be a drummer crutch, and also it's just like it's an inherent, cymbals are inherently bright. We like to kind of make like less bright sounding recordings.
Totally. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. But there's still something about that ride. Some of my favorite ride sounds are like the Carpenters records. Like those records, like Todd Rundgren records, like always had nice bright. I guess that's true. It is a very bright sound. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, there's definitely a place for it. It's it's weird. It's just the way. I guess our philosophy has more to do with. Sorry, I'm talking so much. My voice is hurting. It's my fault. But I guess it applies more to crash cymbals, because crash cymbals, like.
Oh yeah, I never use crash cymbals. I started off on drums first. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So I took drum lessons. I love drums. I was in the drum line at my high school. Like.
Whoa.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
That's so cool. The closest I've ever gotten to a drumline is watching the movie Drumline.
That movie came out right when I started learning, so it was just like, really? My head was just like blown. I loved that movie. Like
I love that movie too.
Yeah. That's awesome. One thing I noticed with your drumming, this could be a very vague description, but I see you have a lot of ghost notes and you're heavy on the right foot. Can I say is that a Bonham thing, or who were your drumming guys growing up?
Yes, and I think that is an astute, accurate, and flat and very nice observation.
Yeah.
It definitely has roots in Bonham. It definitely has roots. Like I was very, very young when I was like doing like practicing drums and like building those skills for the first time. And I was definitely trying, like listening to Led Zeppelin records. I also noticed it in Glenn Cochise playing in Wilco. I noticed certain fills that he was doing with the kick drum, and I remember like as a pretty young kid, like it's practicing and just like just playing kick drum and seeing how fast I could do it.
Yeah.
By itself. Just like trying to build that muscle. And I guess I find the kick drum a lot more emotional than the other drums. Something about it, I don't know.
Yeah, that's how my drum teacher taught me too, because he was like a big Bonham guy. So it was always just like a lot of kick drum. As soon as I learned how to play the Immigrant Song, that was like a huge fucking day for me. Yeah, it was like I couldn't do it on my bass pedal because it was kind of crappy. But as soon as I got on one of those like Iron Cobras, like I was like, oh, I can do it. Maybe it's just my kick pedal that's trash, not my foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Sometimes the gear is an obstacle.
What kind of kit do you play on right now?
Usually like vintage Rogers stuff. Cool. The kit I play at home is the same one I played for the first time when I was like a little kid at my mom's bar. It's from her bar. But then we also have like some we have one main CNC kit at the loft. It's like a blue kit that they made for the studio. It's really cool. And sometimes also I play like super cheap. Like I've recorded a lot on my own with really, really cheap knockoff 60s kits like this. There's this knockoff brand called Whitehall that Mark, the studio manager, found at a thrift store for like $100, and it's really thin Luan shells. I kind of like thin shells, and a lot of the cheaper kits from the 60s are that way, which is cool because they're usually pretty cheap still now, and they sound great. It's like mostly depends on how you tune them and how you dampen them and stuff.
With the thin shell, tonally, what are we looking at here with a thinner shell compared to like a thicker shell? What have you experienced when
I don't know exactly. There's just something that maybe this is psychosomatic, but but I feel like they literally feel lighter to play, like when the drum itself isn't super heavy. Just like those super modern, like really thick shells can just feel like cumbersome. Like they feel more like, I don't know, just heavier to play. So if you're trying to be like kind of more agile, which feels good to me, thin drums seem to be better for that. But it also is sometimes it's a trade-off because like those are a lot less durable when you're touring, and you might
that's definitely.
But I think CNC is a great middle ground.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that with the touring. Damn. And then putting them in shells and putting them in the van. I don't know. I haven't gone touring as a drummer, so that's something I always wanted to do, but I've never done that. Yeah.
It depends on how careful you are with them, I guess.
Totally.
But definitely a Bonham fan. Also, Keith Moon, Idolizer were the two biggest influences on me when I was really like figuring drums out for the first time. And then only shortly after that, getting into Greg Saunier from Deerhoof.
That's awesome.
Or Saunier.
Yeah.
And he's like still one of my absolute drumming idols. He's so great.
That's so cool. Yeah, Bonham, uh, Dave Grohl was like huge for me too, because I really loved
Oh wow.
those like big, fat sounding drummers. Like Dave Grohl doesn't do a
Mm-hmm.
lot of flashy stuff, but he's just like fucking
Mm-hmm.
loud and solid. That's kind of where. And Bonham, same thing. Yeah, that's crazy. Keith Moon was someone. I just got into the Who way later in life. I just missed it.
Mm-hmm.
So by the
Yeah.
time, yeah. But my old drummer, my buddy Tommy, he played on our first record and our second record. He's also an app developer, but
Oh really?
he's like a big Keith Moon fan. Yeah. So it all connects.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched that Showbiz Kids doc.
Oh yeah.
It was really good, man. I loved all
What did you
the
think?
music. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was sad.
Thanks.
I thought it was
Yeah.
really insightful. Like, because you hear the stories about like Macaulay Culkin, who's doing great. I guess I have some friends who work for him, and he's great. He's got a podcast. But you see a lot of these younger kids getting pushed into film and commercials and television, and it seems difficult. It's a different world than music that I don't know, so it's weird. It was crazy to see a glimpse of what children can go through in that medium of art.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's full of sad stories, but also happy stories.
That's true. And what was your experience like working on that soundtrack? Because it's not really songs; it's kind of just like chord progressions.
Hmm.
And was that also from the stockpile of your dad's folders, or with those jams?
Yeah, mostly it was. Mostly it was from that stuff, or it was based on that stuff, but then we would like slightly alter it just to make sense on that shorter format. Oops, I think there might be somebody visiting in a second. But it it was really fun. We were able to make it relatively quickly, and my brother was involved. He's 20 years old, and we don't get to record with him a ton, so that was kind of my favorite part about it personally.
What did he play?
He is super into modular synthesis. I mean, he plays
Oh,
guitar and sings as well,
cool.
but his main thing is synthesizers, and so he contributed a lot of the synth stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother world to me, man. I went and checked out the Moog factory in
Hmm.
Asheville.
Oh
Have
yeah.
you been there?
No.
Oh, it's nuts, man. And then they got a free tour, and they kind of just show you. It's really like each aisle is like three different dudes and women too, three different
Yeah.
people. But it's like
Yeah.
all handmade.
Hmm.
Everything's handmade, and you can watch them do it. It's like, oh yeah, they're putting on this piece, and then over here, these people are putting on this. I was like, oh my god, it really is
That's
handmade. It's
so
crazy.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. They definitely put a lot of care into those, and their new products are so cool.
Yeah, and they it's like we make them the same way, so it's like when you think you're getting new gear, and it's like, oh, because that's okay. This is a place where we can go. New gear versus
Mm.
vintage gear.
Mm.
I think that's what makes Moog so great, because just because it's new doesn't mean you aren't going to get those vintage sounds and things, because it's still the same way. How do you feel about
Totally.
that new gear versus vintage gear?
Um, well, it sort of depends on the instrument or like the area, and I mean in general, like I've I prefer vintage stuff when it's possible, and like I've tried, I think like a lot of people, to like figure out why that is, and like what's really going on, why did these things change, and what is different about them. And for something like cymbals, I've learned that they changed because people's tastes changed, and like music got different in the 80s, and touring got different,
Mm-hmm.
and so cymbals became heavier. And the other reason changed. It's sort of a chicken and the egg situation, because the tastes might have changed because of like the way production changed, or and
Mm.
vice versa. I don't really know. But the other part of it was that like mass production of goods in general really ramped up and changed, and things moved to Asia, and there was like whatever. So like cymbals got thicker, and that made them sound, to in my opinion, worse. And that's
Yeah.
why I like old cymbals. And today the thing that makes me optimistic is that there are still people, or like small companies, that make stuff in those quote unquote old ways, or they have new ways of making stuff that sounds great. So that's awesome. And then with guitars, it's weird because like some I've learned that some of the reasons that they like old finishes are better, and even the finishes even affect the sound to some degree. And one of the reasons they're different is because of environmental laws, and like the polyurethane spray that they used to use on them
Mm.
is illegal now, and it should be, because it was contributing to the ozone layer.
Yeah.
And same thing with like rosewood being not sustainable to
Mm.
log, and all these. I'm really sounding like a know-it-all right now. I'm
That's
sorry,
okay.
but
I'm learning. I didn't know anything about that, so go.
but it's just like, um, thank you. They're I just like to. I mean, it's like a mystery. It's like, why the hell is all this vintage stuff so much better? And I guess there are like a lot of different concrete causes that contribute to it. But um, in general, like, yeah, vintage still feels like a better bet most of the time. But I'm really grateful that there are companies like CNC and certain cymbal makers and guitar makers like
Mm-hmm.
Waterloo slash Collings, that still just make stuff really carefully, like Moog, like you said, and they still do it
Yeah.
in with the old way, or with old values.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why I think I don't know. I don't know where I'm at. I have a newer
Mhm.
I have a newer jazz master, and if you
Oh
showed
yeah.
me an older jazz master, I'd be like, okay, I don't know, I don't feel it. It plays the
Hmm.
same and it feels good, you know. Like
Yeah.
I've a big memory is I have one of those, like, I don't know. I guess it's getting vintage now, I guess, but I bought this Gretsch 10 years ago, like a hollow body one of those Gretches, and some guy was
Hmm.
like, "Well, my Gretsch is from the '50s." I was like, "Okay." Like
Hmm.
you still play them the same way, like,
Yeah.
but maybe there's something there to that. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Well, like we were saying with the with the DAW stuff, it's like whatever I think the best thing. And people, uh, people can play Tyscos that cost $100, and if they become super intimately acquainted with it,
Yeah, yeah,
then they can express themselves.
it's true.
And the flip side of that is that, like you were saying about uh about your kick drum pedal, it's like sometimes I think sometimes it's really like you can be really limited by the playability of an instrument, especially
That's
with
true.
acoustic guitars, in my opinion. Like
Mm,
I feel like it is really a huge shame that so many people who are starting out guitar or something on a very hard to play guitar don't know that there's something better out there, and that the things that are better out there are so out of reach because they can often be really expensive, because that can mean the difference between like somebody sticking with the instrument or
yeah,
feeling like they're just too bad at it, because the difference is so humongous. It's like impossible to play an acoustic
yeah.
guitar that's set up poorly, or
The
that
action's
is
real
just
high, and
bad.
it's like it hurts your hands to play, and yeah, I agree.
And not only on your fingers, but like to your ears, because it's like, why
Oh,
do I sound bad? Why can't I? And then when you get in, if you're like recording in GarageBand and you're like, this doesn't sound good. And you know if people haven't been around a bunch of stuff and like other guitars, they can just think that it's the way it is. But there's a lot of great stuff out there.
That's that's awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to say about your book, or what should we know?
No, I think we did the book justice, but I just want to
Cool.
say thanks for thinking to have me on the show, and it was really fun talking to you.
Yeah, I saw your tweet and I
First
was
time
like, oh.
talking in person.
I know. Well, yeah, virtually, yeah.
Yeah.
Someone told me you're at my Chicago show. Is that true? I didn't get to see you that day, but were you there? I played the that like arcade room, that like massive
Emporium.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't think so. I wish, but I don't think I've seen any shows there. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Someone told me. I was like, oh, okay. Well, maybe if I see him, I'll say hi. And then like it got too busy, and I was like, oh, he probably left. All right, good to know.
Oh crap. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Hypothetically, sorry.
I'm okay. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I do like that place though. That was a cool venue in Chicago. And then I can't remember the last place I played, but there's a lot of great venues in Chicago, man. I love Chicago.
Totally.
I miss it.
We've got some of the best, and hopefully you can come back and play not too long from now.
I hope so, because I love that place, man. All right, well, what's October 20th? You said the book comes out.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thanks so much for talking to me, and I wish you and your family well.
You too. Thank you so much, man.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. See ya.